Hey everybody, welcome to Life in Calgary, Alberta. I'm your host, Patrick Murray. Now recently there was a report that came out stating that Calgary had the highest cost of basic needs than any other major city in all of Canada. And we're going to get into that right here in this video and a lot more as we discuss the cost of living in the city of Calgary. But before we do that, if this is your first time in this channel and you want to know everything there is about what it's like to eat, sleep, breathe, live and play in Calgary, Alberta, then guys, just hit that subscribe button and click that little bell so you get notified every single time I release a new video. Now guys, I've been living in Calgary since 2001, but I've been a realtor here since 2010, and that means I've got some specialized knowledge about the city of Calgary and the surrounding bedroom community. So if you are considering a move to the city of Calgary or one of the bedroom communities and you would like some assistance to purchase a home, feel free to reach out to me, send me a text, an email, a phone call. My information is below. I will absolutely get back to you. Okay guys, let's do this. Let's talk about the cost of basic needs in Calgary, Alberta, right after this. Alright guys, so let's get into this right now. Now before I get moving here, I want you to know I've got a few notes here because I've got a lot of information to share with you and I don't want to miss anything. But let's start with what are basic needs. So basic needs are essential goods and services that a person or family requires to maintain a decent standard of living, such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, healthcare, childcare, and other personal and household items. Now the cost of basic needs will of course vary depending on the location, size, and circumstances of the household. Now, recent data from Statistics Canada's Market Basket Measure, MBM, collected in 2022 looks at how much it costs a family of four to cover the necessities of housing, food, clothing, and transportation, and showed that Calgary is now higher than Toronto and Vancouver, which to me was a little bit surprising. So today I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to show you how Calgary is the most expensive city in Canada to meet basic needs of a family of four. And I'll discuss the factors that contribute to the high cost of living in Calgary. And I'll also talk about the challenges and implications of meeting the basic needs for low income and vulnerable Canadians. So before we get started and go headlong into this topic here, first I want to talk a little bit about the methodology here. So the information here is based on secondary data sources such as reports, articles, websites that provide information and statistics on the cost of basic needs in Canada. Now the main sources used for this video here are the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which is the CCPA, and it publishes annual reports on the living wage in various Canadian cities. And the living wage is the hourly wage that a family needs to earn to cover the cost of basic needs and to participate in the community. Numbeo, which is a website that provides user-generated data on the prices of various goods and services in different cities around the world. Numbeo calculates the cost of living index, which is a relative indicator of the consumer prices in a city compared to New York City, which has a baseline index of 100. And finally, the Government of Canada, which provides official stats and information on various aspects of life in Canada, such as income, poverty, housing, health, education, and social programs. Now here, we will focus on the cost of basic needs in Calgary, Alberta, but we will compare it, and we're going to go a little bit beyond Toronto and Vancouver. We're going to compare it with the cost of basic needs in other major Canadian cities, such as Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, and Edmonton. Now, the presentation uses most of the recent data available from the sources, which are mostly from 2021 and 2022. So what have we found out here? Well, Calgary is the most expensive city in Canada to meet the basic needs of a family of four, according to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, again, that CCPA. And the living wage for Calgary is higher than any other city in the country. And this means that a family of four in Calgary with two full-time workers needs to earn a combined income of over $86,000 a year to afford a decent quality of life in our city. Now, the cost of housing is the main driver of the high cost of living in Calgary, and this is according to Numbeo. And they claim that rents are high, and also the current benchmark price for a detached home in Calgary currently sits at $699,500 as of the filming of this video. And the rental and the housing markets in Calgary are tight right now with low vacancy rates and high demand. Now, the cost of childcare is another significant expense for families with young children in Calgary, and according to the CCPA, the average monthly fee for a licensed childcare center in Calgary is $1,250 for an infant, $1,050 for a toddler, and $1,000 for a preschooler. Now, these fees are among the highest in Canada, and they've increased over 9% from 2019. And the CCPA also notes there's a shortage of childcare spaces in Calgary, especially for infants and toddlers, which makes it harder for parents to find affordable and quality care for their children. Now, the cost of transportation is another big cost for Calgarians, and according to the CCPA, a family of four in Calgary needs to spend roughly $635, pardon me. Wow, 1,000 would be crazy. $635 per month on transportation, which includes the cost of owning and operating a car, as well as the cost of public transit. Now, the CCPA notes that Calgary has a low-density urban sprawl, which means that many people do have to commute long distances to work, school, and to other services. And it also notes that Calgary has a high reliance on cars, which makes it more vulnerable to fluctuations in gas prices and insurance prices. Now, the cost of food, clothing, and healthcare and other personal and household items is also higher in Calgary than in other major Canadian cities. And this was what was noted on the recent report that came out, or the recent figures that were released in the media talking about the high cost of basic needs in Calgary, Alberta. Now, according to Numbeo, the cost of living index in Calgary is higher than any other Canadian city, although roughly $500 does separate the top cities on the list. And those cities are Calgary at number 1, followed by Vancouver at number 2, Toronto at number 3, and then, believe it or not, Edmonton at number 4 on the list. And just so you know, Numbeo also provides averages for prices of various items in Calgary, such as milk, rice, bread, eggs, and chicken. So as you can imagine, the high cost of basic needs in Calgary certainly affects the everyday life of Calgarians, but none more so than low-income and vulnerable Canadians. So there's increased risk of poverty and homelessness, and according to the Government of Canada, the poverty rate in Calgary is lower than the national average, but higher than the provincial average. And the Government of Canada also reports there are roughly 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in Calgary. And they note that the high cost of housing and the lack of affordable and adequate housing options are the main causes of homelessness in Calgary. Now, they also note that there's reduced access to health and social services. The health-adjusted life expectancy in Calgary is higher than the national average. However, it is lower than the provincial average. And the Government of Canada also reports that social spending per capita in Calgary is lower than the national average and lower than the provincial average. And the living and low social spending may limit the access and availability of health and social services for Calgarians, especially for those who are marginalized and disadvantaged. So in conclusion, what have we learned here? Well, Calgary is the most expensive city in Canada to meet the basic needs of a family of four, and the cost of housing, childcare, transportation, and other items is higher in Calgary than in most other Canadian cities. Now, there is a caveat here when we talk about housing, because while housing has gone up significantly in Calgary, which I think is the main basis for this report here, it is certainly nowhere close to as high as what it is in Toronto, which is roughly 2 times more expensive than Calgary, or Vancouver, which is roughly 3 times more expensive in Calgary for a detached home. And the other challenge and implication of the high cost of living in Calgary is for low income and vulnerable Calgarians, such as increased risk of homelessness and poverty, and reduce access to health and social services, reduce participation and inclusion in the community. As I said, if you are thinking about making a move to the city of Calgary or one of the bedroom communities and you would like some more information or some assistance to purchase a home, my information is below. Feel free to send me a text, an email, or a phone call. I will absolutely get back to you so you can start living your life in Calgary, Alberta.